Hi, everybody. Welcome to AP Environmental Science 5able Cram Preview 2024. We're so excited to have you here and show you what we're going to learn about and what we're going to do in crams this year. So I am not going to take up a ton of time. My name is Jenny. I am our AP teacher that's going to help. I taught AP Environmental Science for 8 years and have been with 5able for a really long time too. Excited to be back. This would be my second cram season that I'm going to be attending. But yeah, we're really excited to get started with this preview and show you kind of what crams look like and what we're going to be doing this year. So without taking up any more of our time, I am going to have our amazing student hosts introduce themselves and then jump right into some content.
Hello, I am Cade. What should we say about ourselves?
Why don't you say where you're located and if you are currently in high school or if you're going to college right now?
That sounds like a great idea. Okay, I am located in the middle of nowhere in like central Virginia, like in the middle of a forest. I go to a high school that is also in the middle of that forest. I'm a senior this year, and I have not yet decided where I'm going to go to college, but I plan on majoring in biology.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rakshita. You can call me Rakshi. I'm a senior in high school. I'm 17 years old, soon to be 18. What? I took APES last year, and honestly, it was so fun. I love this class. I absolutely loved everything about it. It has some of my favorite topics, and I learned so much. I have not decided where I'm going to college, but hopefully it'll be somewhere where I basically do great things. And I plan to major in political science, but trust me, I know what I'm doing with APES. Trust me.
Awesome, guys. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into our content. I'm gonna go hide.
All right, let's get skedoodling. All right, we did the welcome. Community agreements. Let's get into that. Then we're gonna do some tips for crams. Talk about the cram schedule. Some of you guys were asking about that. And then we have some practice questions and maybe a cram quiz. They're like, if we get to it, if we have time. We only have an hour. You want to take this one?
You can go take this one.
You got it. I did the last one.
Okay, fine. All right. Community agreements. We basically ask that you guys be decent people in the chat. Just don't be mean. Don't say horrible things. This is about learning, and we're here to learn apes. So we want to be supportive. Let's lift each other up. If anyone has any questions, not only are we here to answer, if anyone else in the chat needs help or if anyone else in the chat knows the answer to a question, you're always free to provide an answer. We ask that you be patient. These cram sessions can feel at the same time, they can feel really long and also really short. And we know that AP season is really stressful. We have 5 nights together. We're not Freddy. We're not doing 5 nights of Freddy here, but we will help you get the best score in apes. That is kind of what 5able is all about. And we ask that you guys just be patient with us and be patient with each other. Most of all, be kind, be decent people. Let's all have fun here, and let's all make sure that we get good scores on the AP exam, and let's all make sure that we learn things.
All right. So this is a preview, so it's like a mini version of the cram finale. But these still kind of work. So take some notes. Like, get a mini notebook or some paper right now. It can't hurt. Additionally, if you are a Cram subscriber, you will have access to the hub where there's guides, practice questions, cheat sheets, and replays of this and the 3-hour-long Cram sessions, which, if you can't get to, you can always see the recordings. And there's a group chat, apparently. So if you guys were talking about a giant group chat, well, bada bing, bada boom. Oh, that's in here. The group chat, I guess, is in here. And then we also have a Q&A tab. You can submit questions like someone already did. Can we talk about the Coriolis effect? I think that's in one of these. Is that in this one?
It's not in this one. We're basically going over all the Unit 1 stuff. But you will be able to see that probably around night 2, night 3, I believe.
What? I think it's like Unit... it's in the one that's about, like, climate and stuff.
I think
that
that's
might be
like
Unit 4.
Either night 2 or night 3. I have a feeling
Yeah.
that's around the vicinity of where you'd want to pay attention to that. We do have the full schedule. We're going to be having, 5 nights, like I said, May 4th, May 5th, May 6th, May 7th, and May 8th. So, yeah.
All right, next slide. We good? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys seem to have figured the chat out. There's a Q&A. You can submit questions. And there's polls. You should check out the polls I made. They're cool. Seems like a lot of people need to study. A lot of people are spooked. And some are saying, it's fine in regard to the AP exam. A lot of people want a 3 to 4. A lot of people also, they want that 5. We're here to help. We got you. A lot of people are also going to be here for the Cram sessions. We love to see it. And the biggest concern in terms of unit is Unit 4. So that is, that's night 2, May 5th. Be there.
Yep, and here's our schedule. And here is all of us. You're going to hear from Emery, Kirsten, Mary, and you're going to hear from them later on in some of the other nights. But for now, it's just me and Cade, and we will lead the brigade. That rhymed. I should be a rapper. Social media, please follow us.
Yep. All right, let's do this. Tonight we're talking about biomes. I'm going to start you guys off with some terrestrial ones, aka land biomes. Let's do this. No. Got some deer. All right, first off is the tundra. That's up far north, and it's pretty much, it's a desert, except it is cold. You're not going to see a lot of plants, very few animals, but the animals that you do see, they're going to be adapted to that cold, white, bright white environment. They're going to have thick skin and thick fur, and they're just going to be really adapted to the cold. They might also hibernate. And plants are also going to be very adapted to that cold, might have some anti-freezing capabilities. But because of global change, aka climate change, we are experiencing that those are warming up a little bit. You know, the classic, the polar bears, they're losing their ice, the ice is melting. That's a real thing that's happening because of just the buildup of gases coming from fossil fuels, and it's warming, and the ice is warming a lot and melting a lot more, and then it's not freezing as much. So it's not the greatest effect. All right. Next biome. I feel like I'm playing Minecraft here. This is another Minecraft biome. We have the Taiga, aka a boreal forest. This is also called a conifer forest. You see these a lot in Canada. They're very pretty. They're also at about the same latitudes in Europe and Asia. Again, they're still pretty cold, not as cold as the tundra, but they're still decently cold. And there's actually some really cool adaptations. I did a project on 7th grade in it. And pretty much they have tall trees. They're coniferous, meaning they don't lose their leaves like oak trees do. They keep them year round, and they've got this nice waxy coating so that the sun doesn't the snow doesn't stick. Jesus Christ, I cannot speak today. And on the animal side of things, you know, they're going to hibernate during the winter, or they're going to have adaptations to those longer, cooler winters. But of course, you know, there's those human effects. We go after those trees. There's a lot of trees there, and, you know, we need wood to build furniture, to have paper, all sorts of things we need that wood for. Additionally, there's lots of oil deposits up there, like with the Willow Project. There are some initiatives to go get oil in those kinds of regions, but there's also the environmental impact of that on the land, on the animals, on the environment as a whole. And it's overall a really cool biome. So let's see our next guy. The temperate rainforest. This is my favorite biome. And you're going to see that a lot in terms of North America. You're going to see that more on the West Coast in places like Washington State and Oregon. And you're going to also see it in some places in Australia, Southern Africa, and Southern South America. And a little bit in Eurasia, just a little bit. And you're going to get a lot of rain. You've got deciduous trees, the ones that keep their leaves throughout the year. And because there's so much rain, all of the nutrients that are kind of diluted out. That said, there's still a lot of growth. And part of that is so that the plants can reach the sunlight, because if you've got a lot of big, tall trees, like redwoods, there's going to be a giant canopy keeping away sunlight. So plants have to kind of adapt to that. And just like in the taiga or boreal forest, animals, they hibernate. And again, just like in the taiga, there's a lot of wood here, especially the redwoods. Those trees get huge. So naturally, that's a great place for humans to take economic advantage and do logging there. But there's animals that live there, and also the CO2 sequestration property of trees that are lost every time we do go into that logging process. So then we have woodland shrubland. As you can see, it's not a super common biome, but pretty much it's got some really hot and dry summers, and then the winters turn rainy. And because it gets really hot and dry in the summer, you get a lot of droughts. And when it's dry and warm, that leads to fires. Perfect kindling. But to combat that, a lot of plants get more towards evolving against that kind of dryness. So you get things a little bit like cactuses, right? Where they can stand up to all of that dryness and hold on to water a bit wetter. But in some of these environments, we have taken advantage of these conditions and turned it into farmland. And as always, there's always pollution. Pollution impacts everything, and it's gonna impact these kind of environments. Tropical rainforest. If you want to talk about adaptations, this is one of the best. We've got the Amazon rainforest. That is one of the most well-known. And then you also have massive rainforests in Southeast Asia and in Central Africa. They are hot. They are humid. There's a lot of sunlight. They're close to the equator. And because it is warm, humid, and there's lots of rain, oh my gosh, the biodiversity is through the roof. There are so many different types of life here. It is freaking incredible. And unfortunately, since there's a lot of trees here, they have been very much so victims to logging. And because there's so high biodiversity of animals that have really cool traits, like jaguars, they can camouflage into these crazy environments and blend in. And we also get plants that evolve to these very specific conditions. And because there's so many different environments within the rainforest, there's so many niches, everything gets so specified that once we start causing this deforestation by doing such extensive logging and by, establishing cities and neighborhoods and just human settlements in these type of environments, it's so much more of an impact than with the taiga, because there's so many more animals animals and plants within a small space. There's such a higher concentration of life that we are causing such a big difference just with the rainforest. And again, you're losing a lot of that CO2 sequestration in addition to all of the animal impacting losses when you log rainforests. Let's see what's next. The Savannah, another Minecraft biome. In my opinion, it's my least favorite. Sorry, not sorry. It is characterized by it is dry and it is hot. So yeah, bunch of fires in the summer. It happens. And because it gets really dry and hot and you don't get as much rain, there's not a lot of leaves on the plants. But there is extremely high biodiversity. You get things like elephants, lots of herd animals like zebras. And to combat the rotating dry and wet periods, animals will migrate. I actually saw a really, really cool what was it? A documentary about, I think it was wild buffalo in that region, and they migrate a lot. And interesting adaptation, if animals migrate, their populations are higher because they're able to evade predators and they're able to follow resources better, which I thought was a really cool thing. And there's fires, and when humans are involved, we tend to take a little bit more than we necessarily need sometimes, or than just what's available, tragedy of the commons and all. And that has a very high impact in this kind of environment because there's not really a lot to start off with. And then another very human thing is the introduction of non-native species. We carry plants and animals and all types of organisms wherever we go, and sometimes we can bring invasive species along with us. All right, subtropical desert. I love cactuses. So it's very hot, very dry. And so the only types of animals and plants you're going to find here are animals that are not out during the day. They come out at night when it's a lot cooler. They're nocturnal. And you're going to have plants that can store a lot of water for a long time, and animals that can do the same thing. And a human effect on this is because of global warming, the temperatures here are getting even hotter. So you're getting even more droughts, even less water. And that can also cause things like dust storms when you've got, more wind because there's less water in plants keeping the dust down, and it's easier for it to just whoosh, be carried away. All right, I'm going to pass it off to my friend. Oh, hold on.
Oh, wow, I am gigantic. I'm going to move myself to stage left so that you guys can witness these beautiful slides. Shout out to the slide editors. Love you guys. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about aquatic biomes. This is topic 1.3 in case you guys want to note that down somewhere. Aquatic biomes are basically ecosystems classified by the presence of water, freshwater, or marine, and the types of organisms that live in them, which, oh my God, who would have thought aquatic biomes have to do with water, guys? Okay, anyways, I'm done being sarcastic. All right, so there are two types of aquatic systems, and for some reason, I think the first type is not loading on screen. Basically, you have, You have two types, and I'm going to just tell you about both, so you guys want to write this down. You have, oh, there it is, never mind. Okay, you have freshwater aquatic systems, and these have, they don't have a lot of salinity. So these are your things like your ponds, your lakes, your rivers, your streams. And these organisms tend to support a variety of organisms like fish, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and birds. And these freshwater aquatic systems tend to be drinking water sources, so they're really important. A fact you might want to keep in mind for the APES exam is that there's a lot more saltwater than there is freshwater. So these freshwater sources are incredibly important, not just for biodiversity, but also for basic survival. You need water to live. If you are alive, water is kind of a necessity. Please keep that in mind. On that note, please hydrate. If you haven't already, please hydrate. And the next type of aquatic system we have are marine aquatic systems. And these are high salinity aquatic systems. These also support a variety of organisms like fish, but they also feature things like shellfish, seaweed, marine mammals. And basically, one thing to note about marine aquatic systems is that there's a ton of algae. And algae are super important because they are actually the ones doing the brunt of the work of taking in carbon dioxide and supplying oxygen. as much as I love trees, they don't do all of that work. They account for about maybe 20% of that process, but algae deal with the remaining 80% of taking in carbon dioxide and supplying oxygen. And so those are basically two of the two main aquatic systems and the differences that you want to keep in mind for them. All right, and next we're going to be talking about zonation. If you're anything like me, you probably saw these words when you were in APES or when you were self-studying and been like, oh my God, what is this? Never fear. You basically, first, you're going to be dealing with pelagic zones. And this is basically your open water where marine life can swim freely and most primary production occurs. I like to think of this as basically kind of just Little Mermaid type stuff. You have your schools of fish. It's not quite under the sea, but it is basically under the sea, but it's like open ocean. This is kind of where I imagine, I guess, Atlantis. I don't remember what the Little Mermaid kingdom was called, but this is basically just open waters. See plenty of schools of fish, lots of zooplankton, lots of phytoplankton. There's a lot of primary production here, which if you'll remember, this is the process of photosynthesis. A lot of that happens here because you have a lot of phytoplankton and algae here. They're basically doing a lot of the production of things necessary to live here. The next thing you have is your benthic zones, and these are actually don't deal with actual zonation laterally, they deal with it going down. So this is basically the lowest level of any body of water. And because it's the lowest level, there isn't a lot of sunlight that ends up permeating through the water. So a lot of the organisms here, they need to rely on nutrient-rich sediment and the soil at the bottom, the seabed, or at the bottom of any body of water to live. And I think some good examples of, I guess, benthic organisms would be like your typical anglerfish, things that basically it's pitch dark there, things that rely on bioluminescence to get around. You also have a lot of like bacteria living there. I believe in the bottom of the ocean there are organisms that live like on volcanic fuel, volcanic sludge. Love that for them. It's like hot lunch every day. It's like worse than school lunch, believe it or not. And that basically is your benthic zones because those are all the way down in the bottom. And lastly, we're dealing with estuaries. And this is where freshwater meets saltwater. This is also known as kind of brackish water. If any of you guys have been to Florida, been to the Florida Keys, you'll see a lot of estuaries there. Florida is very well known for estuaries. It is also very well known for the fact that it's going under in 100 years. This is basically the big transition between the two ecosystems of marine and freshwater ecosystems. So you get to see, a lot of organisms that can thrive, that have adapted to thrive in both saltwater and freshwater here. A notable example of my favorite personal example, if any of you guys have watched Wildcats, they had like this one episode where basically there was a point in Florida where both alligators and crocodiles lived. I can't remember which one lives in freshwater and which one lives in marine or saltwater, but in those estuaries, you saw both. So honestly, estuaries are super cool because it's a challenge to live there, but if you live there, you see a lot of really cool organisms, alligators and crocodiles. If any of you guys can tell the difference, by the way, please do let me know. I still haven't figured that out. All right, so our first main aquatic biome that we're going to be talking about here are streams and rivers. Like I mentioned before, these are freshwater sources of water, and streams eventually join into rivers, which eventually join into larger bodies of water. So streams and rivers are super important. Because the water in streams and rivers tend to move really fast, there's a lot of oxygen content in that water. It's very, very rich in oxygen. And it supports a lot of freshwater fish, most notably, my favorite example, salmon. And because there's a lot of salmon in streams and rivers, you also have a lot of predators of salmon. For instance, grizzly bears. I love bears. Bears are great. Some human impacts on streams and rivers are increased pollution, as usual. That's typically the usual culprit here. And excessive fertilizer use. which ends up finding its way into streams and rivers. And this can be really toxic for freshwater fish and other wildlife. So with a lot of fertilizer use and a lot of pollution, you see things like bioaccumulation and biomagnification, if that's ringing a bell for anyone. So that's something that you see a lot in these freshwater streams and rivers. And the bad thing is, because of all of this fertilizer use and pollution, these inevitably end up traveling to larger bodies of water like the ocean or lakes and stuff like that. So really, the pollution here, it kind of ends up going whoop. It just ends up expanding and spreading out. So that's a pretty bad human impact. The next aquatic biome that we're going to be talking about are lakes and ponds. And these are basically collections of standing freshwater. I can't help but think of an example at my school. When I was in elementary school, there was kind of a depression in the pavement. It would be like kind of concave-ish. And every time we had really, really hard rain, which wasn't a lot considering I live in California, every time we had a lot of really hard rain, that the pavement would basically fill up with water, and it would be like a mini pond. And that's basically what your lakes and ponds are. They're basically just standing freshwater, and they kind of rely on rain and all of that stuff to kind of fill them up. Photosynthesis tends to occur in the shallow water near the shores of these lakes and ponds. So that's where you'll find a lot of your phytoplankton, a lot of basically your algae. And the benthic zones of lakes and ponds are typically, they're not too deep unless the lake is like gigantic, like the Great Lakes. They're usually the muddy bottoms of the lake. So there isn't like, it's not like massively huge or anything, or massively deep, excuse me. But it tends to be the muddy bottom of the lake, and you'll see a lot of bugs and crabs and stuff, or not crabs, excuse me, but you'll see a lot of creatures that live in the muddy bottoms of those lakes. Some human impacts here are, the biggest one at least, is fertilizer runoff, which actually can lead to algae blooms and eutrophication, if that's ringing a bell. Because of all that fertilizer runoff, algae actually tend to feed on those nitrates that are nitrates that are present in the fertilizer. Woof, I cannot talk. But they tend to feed a lot on that fertilizer stuff, and they basically go nuts. They grow. There's a lot of algae that covers the surface of the lake and pond, and that actually makes it very difficult for fish and other organisms living in the benthic or beneath the shallow water where photosynthesis occurs to actually get light and oxygen. And because of that, they die of anoxia, which is a very, very slow and painful way to go. So yeah, just that's what eutrophication is. And I don't think we really understand how horrible it can be for these ecosystems. So on that bright note, we're going to move into freshwater wetlands. Freshwater wetlands are one of the most productive biomes on here, and these soils are often saturated with freshwater. And freshwater wetlands are super important because they act as a barrier against flooding and drought, which is why you kind of tend to find them along the coast, along where the ocean or the sea is. And freshwater wetlands are so important because not only do they protect us from natural disasters, they protect us from ourselves. They protect us from the consequences of our actions. And by this, I mean they filter our pollutants for us. Freshwater wetlands are so important. And I literally cannot overstate their importance. They are so important for making sure that our pollutants don't come back to bite us in the butt. They are so important to making sure that natural disasters like hurricanes or hurricanes don't like completely destroy us. But unfortunately, we tend to take these freshwater wetlands for granted. Who would have thunk? And things like commercial development and dam construction actually depletes and takes away from the ecological services that wetlands provide. So by consistently taking over these wetlands and using them for not farming, but using them for places to dump your chemicals from farming, or basically using them maybe near factories where there's a lot of, I believe, nuclear waste. I think it's important to note that nuclear waste is often deposited into bodies of water. It's very, very bad, and it actually takes away from the importance of freshwater wetlands, and we're just biting ourselves in the butt quicker. So freshwater wetlands are always there for us, and we keep taking them for granted. On that other bright note, we are going to be moving on to salt marshes. And these are like, I like to think of them as the salty version of as the salty version of our wetlands. Some characteristics of our salt marshes are that they are soils that are saturated with salt water. And these are often located along estuaries, where, if you'll recall, that's where your freshwater meets your saltwater. And these salt marshes are extremely productive for plants and algae. And again, they are also a barrier against coastal erosion and flooding. You might be thinking, wait, if the soils are saturated with salt water, how can the plants live there? Well, there are grasses and plants that have kind of evolved to take in soils that are saturated with salt water and take in those nutrients as well. Once again, we tend to take the salt marshes for granted, just like we take our wetlands for granted. And we basically use these salt marshes for commercial development. And this is basically also a place where, when we use it for commercial development or industrialization, we actually end up pouring our chemicals and radioactive waste and pollutants into these salt marshes. And once again, excessive fertilizer runoff, eutrophication tends to happen here as well. At this point, eutrophication is everywhere, guys. But that's basically some of the main human impacts that we tend to have on salt marshes. Next up is, actually, this is kind of my favorite biome ever, because ever since I found out about mangrove swamps, I was like, that is so cool. Mangrove swamps are characterized by one specific type of, I guess, plant or tree, and that would be the mangrove tree. And excuse me, these mangrove trees have very unique kind of, I want to say, tubular tree roots, and these tree roots kind of nestle themselves into the shallow water, and they effectively prevent natural disaster effects like hurricanes and storms. And they're often located along estuaries and shallow saltwater areas. Mangroves are incredibly important because they absorb the storm surge impacts during extreme weather events like hurricanes. And their dense roots are really, really important for binding and keeping up the integrity of the soil. Unfortunately, some human impacts on mangrove swamps is that we end up clearing the mangrove swamps for increased aquaculture. If you guys will remember, aquaculture is basically, the aquatic equivalent of farming. So we basically clear off these mangrove swamps so that we can basically grow fish, shellfish, and other things here that are important for like seafood and other sea-related products that don't really come to me at the top of my head. But mangrove swamps are so, so important. They are one of my favorite biomes, like, of all time. If I had a list, they would definitely be top 3. And yeah, they're just so important, and they're just characterized by one tree, and they're so important. Next, we have our intertidal zones, which are basically your narrow bands of coastline between high tide and low tide. So it depends on whether or not it really depends if this thing is going to be underwater or over the water based on the tide. And because of the changing tides, this consistently changes your salinity and sunlight. Your intertidal zones often feature things like tide pools, where you'll see a lot of things like starfish, little fishies in those tide pools. You'll see a lot of like mini, I want to say, kind of natural terrariums, I like to call them. Excuse me. And intertidal zones are basically characterized by these things, by basically what's underwater and what's overwater depending on the tide. Some human impacts on the intertidal zones are coastal pollution, like trash, oil spills, and sewage. There's a lot of trash on beaches. There's also a lot of oil spills that happen near the coast or even out in the ocean that finds its way into these intertidal zones because the waves keep kind of like bringing them in. Of course, trash is a huge issue, and a lot of sewage actually ends up funneling its way into the ocean or into large bodies of water. So you see a lot of, I guess, sewage pollution here in these intertidal zones as well. Next up, we have our coral reefs, and you want to keep this in mind because you think that tropical rainforest is the most diverse biome, but in reality, it's your coral reefs. So I take the win for this one. Haha, Cade. I'm joking. But basically, This is a very highly diverse marine biome. It is also a very, very concentrated marine biome, because while tropical rainforests typically tend to spread out for a very, very big amount of area, your coral reefs are usually situated like near your coasts. They're not incredibly large typically. I mean, of course, you have the Great Barrier Reef, which is gigantic, but other than that, your coral reefs tend to be kind of small in both number and in size. They feature warm, shallow waters, and there are tons and tons and tons of both animals and, I guess, underwater plants that live here. So there's many types of algae, lots of fish. Finding Nemo took place in a coral reef. I don't know if that's useful information, but it is definitely information that comes to mind when I think of coral reefs. And they're basically just known for high biodiversity. Another thing to note is that coral reefs also act as a natural barrier against storms and hurricanes because of the structure of just the way that they are, because of the coral itself, because of how it is. It's basically, coral is a living organism. It's not just rock. But the way that it's structured is actually in a way that if there were a hurricane or a tsunami or a really bad storm to come in, it would basically kind of mitigate that effect. It would act as a barrier, kind of like those barriers you see in the middle of the ocean. Its nature is basically an ocean barrier against a lot of the more negative impacts of bad weather. As always, there is human impact on the coral reefs, most importantly, climate change, which causes the acidification of the ocean, which leads to, in turn, coral bleaching or erosion. One thing to keep in mind when it comes to ocean acidification is that this is caused because of the rising temperatures of the ocean. It's not necessary. It also, which in turn influences the carbon dioxide content of the water and lowers the pH of the water and makes it more acidic. Remember, lower pH means more acid, and a higher pH means it's less acidic. And that's basically what our impact has been on the coral reefs. And yeah, it's not fun. Last but not least, this is the last one. We are dealing with the open ocean. And the open ocean is basically features a lot of deep waters where sunlight cannot penetrate, and this is known as the aphotic zone. You could probably figure that the photic zone is where photosynthesis occurs and where sunlight can penetrate into the water. Aphotic zones are basically, it's complete darkness. The bottom of your ocean, or not even the bottom, it's like really deep down where you can't even see anything. The open ocean has a lot of biodiversity, not as concentrated. It's way, way, way more spread out because the open oceans are gigantic and huge and vast and terrifying. Your deep waters and the open ocean here is basically just you have a lot of schools of fish that come here, like photosynthesis. Your zooplankton, your phytoplankton, your algae tend to typically congregate on the surface or near the surface where a lot of photosynthesis occurs. You may have schools of dolphins. You have whales, a lot of your bigger organisms, sharks. I love sharks, actually, guys. Yeah, sharks are great. And they typically tend to live around the open ocean area. As always, there is a human impact. And overfishing here is demonstrated in this picture. This creates an imbalance in the food web, and this in turn leads to a domino effect of, oh, there's no fish. Oh, I guess the sharks and the dolphins have to die. Oh, there's no dolphins. I guess the fish have to come back. It's like it gets really, really messy really, really quick because of all of the overfishing that happens here. Because, like I mentioned, lots of schools of fish here, lots of shellfish, lots of seafood. Delicacies tend to congregate here in the open ocean, and because of the fact that we keep taking and not giving back, tragedy of the commons, it just does not end up well for that ecosystem. And now it's time for practice. Kay, do you want to join me back here while we mercilessly torture these people with quiz questions?
Oh, heck yeah, I do. I'm always down for torture. I mean a good time. It came out as that.
Someone get that on camera?
What? No. Canceling the recording.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I know. Okay, so we have the FRQ. The screen sharing is gone. So do we want to do the FRQs first, or do we want to do the Cram quiz first? I think in true AP style, we should do the multiple choice Cram quiz and then the FRQs.
I agree. I think we need to really prepare them. We need to start drilling them, bro. Okay, who's
right.
okay? Wait. Do you want to keep a poll for this as to whether or not they want to do it or not? Nah.
They don't get the choice.
Quiz. Okay, y'all want quiz, except for that
right.
one person in FRQ, MCQ.
Let me pull it up. So, oh, we get the music. Oh, I forgot the cool music.
Okay.
That's not the right one.
Uh-oh.
I have too many fiveable windows open. Stop sharing. The wrong one. Hold on, we're gonna get it right. It's the one with the sound. Right, there we go. Let me find it. Oh, no. There we go. All right, so you can scan that code with your Mahone. Other people pronounce it as phone. I think they're crazy. Or here. That's not what I wanted. Yep. Yeah, Mahone. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I don't know. How long should I wait? Okay, I know there's more than 15 of you. Oh, there's
one until we get like
no peppers. 41. How many people are in here? 75. All right. I'll start it when we get to like. I don't know. They're sending the emojis. There's also like. Alright, we got 50 people. This is the right one, right? Yeah, it's preview. Okay. It'd be really bad if I was. Yes, it is like you could. You'd just have to copy and paste. Yes, salsa dancing. Yes, everyone should be salsa dancing. Or just dancing in general. All right, we have 50 people. All right, do you think we should start it now?
We're gonna wait until 70 people join. We're gonna give it a minute actually. If you guys are in here. Okay. Actually, we have the start.
All right, let's do this. Ready? Oh no, someone left. Do this. Given climate change projections, what adaptation strategy would best support conservation efforts in alpine biomes facing warmer temperatures? Is it A, creating wildlife corridors that connect current ranges with suitable future habitats? B, constructing artificial shade structures throughout the biome? C, increasing snowmaking on ski slopes during winter months? Or D, introducing drought-resistant plant species from lower altitudes? Aww. Wait, where'd the music go? No, my music went away. So sad. Okay. Oh, okay. I shouldn't have said that out loud. Whatever. All right. Come on, the rest of you. Can I? Oh, I can't hit emojis. Sadness. 9 more people. Come on. Answer. Wait. No, someone left. Oh, they rejoined. Never mind. Oh, God. All right. Okay. Well, if you're that one less person, I'm terribly sorry. The answer is O. Yeah. when I first went through this one,
like what?
I also said B when I first went through this one. I don't know if you guys have heard of wildlife corridors. They look like mossy bridges. They're really cool looking. I've never heard of doing artificial shade structures. And the other ones just wouldn't really help.
I think actually C would work if you lived in the Phineas and Ferb universe. I think that have you seen that one episode where they start making like snow in the middle of winter? I think they could do it, guys. I think Phineas and Ferb would cure the climate crisis. They'd help us all.
Okay. Well, in a non-Phineas and Ferb, unfortunately, the answer is A. All right, let's do this. Yay! My music is back! Okay. Which of the following processes in a forest ecosystem is an example of energy transfer from the sun? Is it A, decomposition of dead matter by fungi? B, consumption of insects by birds? C, photosynthesis of green plants? Or D, nitrogen fixation by soil bacteria? And look, almost half of you have already done it. Right. This isn't really related to biomes. Oh well. Nice easy question. I hope. That sounds an answer, right? Well, you know, if you don't have to like it. No. All right. Happy. My reveal answer. It was something. All right. For the 4 of you who have not yet answered, I am terribly sorry. And the answer is yay! Okay. So a producer, that's a plant, right? It produces energy from sunlight, from the sun. Questions? We're gonna go to this. How might urban expansion most directly impact biodiversity in nearby deciduous forests? Is it A, greater genetic diversity introduced non-native species? B, increased nutrient cycling due to urban waste products? C, enhanced plant growth to reduce carbon dioxide absorption, or is it D, habitat leading to isolated animal populations? I am so sorry to the person whose video is a whole movie. As someone who lives in the middle of nowhere and didn't have like last year, I feel your ooh, someone's still me. Oh, it's pretty. It's color coded.
Oh my god, that's beautiful. Most
I
beautiful.
know.
I'm actually. Can I link that?
All right, my music stopped. How did more people answer than there are people? All right, the correct answer is D. So, Roxy, you want to take this one?
Oh yes, gladly. All right, I see that a couple people have answered A. The thing is, when you introduce non-native species, that is kind of almost unequivocally a bad thing, because they actually end up outcompeting the species that are already there. These are known as invasive species. And also the fact that this deals with urban expansion means that introduced non-native species aren't really going to be an issue here unless the zoo breaks open, or there's like a cat kidnapper, like, you know what I'm saying, like someone like decides to kidnap a bunch of cats and dogs and like lets them loose in the wild. In that case, it's going to be a problem. But question A posits it like, first of all, like it's not a problem. So question A would not be the right answer. Question B wouldn't be right because you wouldn't have a lot of nutrient cycling due to urban waste products. Because of urban waste products, you can't cycle nutrients out of them. A lot of urban waste products tend to be, you can't like compost them, you can't disintegrate them. It's not a C because you don't really get a lot of plant growth when there's urban expansion because of increased carbon dioxide absorption. And the answer is D, because when you have urban expansion, it typically tends to cut in between habitats, and it tends to basically create kind of islands of habitats, and they have no way of getting in between to where they need to go. And I'm done yapping.
All right, yeah. Thank you, Roxy. Which practice is most likely to managing a coniferous forest for sustainable timber production? Is it A, suppressing all understory growth with herbicides? Is it B, planting monocultures after each harvest cycle? Is it C, clear-cutting large areas every few decades? Or is it D, selective cutting of mature trees only? Seeing a lot of I don't know how to take a pepper. All right, good, quick. Yay, we're getting more people back. All right. Oh, I spoke too soon. Stars in my life. Actually, that would hurt. Stars, like actual stars, would literally be fire. Alright. Oh crap, it is almost 8. We gotta skip forward. Alright. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Oh, okay. So we're gonna like run through this quickly. But basically, a lot of you answered B and C. Monocultures are not great, and also they're not really related to timber production. That's agricultural stuff. And clear cutting, yes, every few decades, but that's how long it takes for trees to go mature, right? So
it wouldn't be sustainable if you did that. And the question is asking, when managing a coniferous forest for sustainable timber production, if you keep clear cutting, then that's not sustainable at all. Versus selective cutting or even strip cutting would be better. A selective cutting of only mature trees would be the most sustainable way to get timber production.
yeah, because you still have the younger trees there, so you're not completely wiping out the forest. Which of the following factors primarily determines the type of biome found in the geographical area? A. Soil nutrient levels and mineral decomposition. B. Climate, particularly temperature and precipitation patterns. C. The frequency of natural disturbances such as wildfires. Or D. The migratory patterns of megafauna like elephants, bison. The elephants at the polar. Oh wow, what a fancy. No! 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can't count 0. All right. Yay! Good job.
Wait, you guys are great.
Alright, how might urban planning policies and temperate deciduous forests best mitigate habitat fragmentation? There we go. We're not having a good pattern. A. Sending underground out urban disturbance. Is this B? Increasing the density of urban development without expanding city limits. Is it green belt? Wildlife urban areas, or is it C? Promoting growth of public surrounding forests. I don't know where it's not everyone we need to go. No, my music. Oh. I gotta finish this quickly so we'll start again. Okay. I see a lot of party hats, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's reveal that answer. Okay. Rakshi, you want to take this one?
Sure. All right. This one was quite a tricky one for people. Basically, it's asking how urban planning policies and temperate deciduous, yeah, whatever. Well, not whatever. It's important that you read the question. But you want to think about what's most realistic and what's most effective in this case. Promoting vertical or rather than horizontal expansion of cities or increasing, the density of urban developments actually can be harmful for the environment in general. And you want to look at what's the most effective solution, not just for habitat fragmentation, but also for the environment as well. So by establishing green belts and wildlife corridors between urban areas, we can make it so that habitat fragmentation itself is mitigated and you don't have a really bad effect on the environment. So in this case, the answer would be C. Just think about what's the best overall option with these kinds of questions. They can be tricky, but you want to think about what's best overall, not just best for that particular situation.
Okay, so it is almost 8. We're gonna try to cram an FRQ in here.
So I don't know if we have time for that, but I'm popping back on to say hi. I'm popping back on to say amazing job to all of our student hosts, both our hosts on screen and all of our hosts that were in the chat answering people's questions. Everyone did an amazing job. If we could pop our slides back on for just a second. Hopefully everybody was able to find the slides. If not, we can try and help you find them. I can pop that again below here. There's a survey below us. Please take the survey. You can list any questions there that we didn't get to, or just let us know how we did. And then there are I don't want to call them like a total free response question because they're not exactly like what you would see on the test, but there are 4. I think there's 4 in this one. 3. There's 3 in the preview. And take them like they're real questions, right? Like read the question, write out your answer, and then read what we've got written down and see if you hit it. So really practice those and actually practice writing it. Don't just like think of what you would say in your head when you're doing that. So we've got those for you that you can practice with. Sorry we didn't get to it, but I think the Cram quiz was more fun. And then let's see the other thing. If we could go all the way down, it's like the second to last slide. Just wanted to do a quick pitch for Crams. If you're not signed up to take the Crams, please come sign up and join us. Again, we're going to do one more preview, and then we're going to go 5 nights of 3 hours each. And what days are they? They are the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. So we'll see you all of those nights. We're going to re-go over this material. So if there's anything you missed, we're going to get to see it again. I think that's it. Thank you everyone for joining us. It was really fun. I don't know if we're going to get to that last slide. It just has some information on the Crams and why you should join us. But I think that's it. Thank you everybody for joining. Hopefully we'll see you back on Friday. Bye.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Have fun and good luck on the EP exam.